Is America's Mayor live on a very important day. Today is a very important day for the whole world and for the nation, and it's also a very important day for many of us who knew and loved Bernard Kerik. Today is a day in which all I can think about is courage. Courage is an uncommon virtue. That's a saying that has an awful lot of meaning to it, and goes back to the debates between, believe it or not, uh, Socrates and Plato and Aristotle about exactly what virtue is and what courage is. But we know that courage is the most awesome of virtues. It's the one we admire the most. It's the one that many believe is necessary to be virtuous, because it ties together the other virtues. If you're not courageous, in many cases you can't be effective, because you are paralyzed by the most damaging of human emotions, fear. Well, today is the 81st anniversary of D-Day. I announced that at one of the talks I gave for Bernie today, and they said, were you born yet? And I said, well, about 8 days before. It's my 81st anniversary too, but that was on May 28th. And of course, as I told them, I read every newspaper article and became an expert on D-Day immediately as a 1-week-old, which of course is not true. But I did grow up in the generation that where Pearl Harbor was mentioned all the time. If my parents didn't tell me once, they told me 5,000 times where they were on Pearl Harbor's Day. My father was getting ready to listen to a Giant football game on radio. And you think of all those young men, many of them underage, who had lied in order to not to sneak into the United States and steal, rape, rob, and pillage, but to put their lives at risk to free Europe. The courage on the beaches of Normandy, maybe, just maybe, is the greatest display of courage by the most people ever, at least certainly in the modern world. Well, the man that we buried today, Bernard Carrick, had that uncommon virtue of courage in great abundance. He was one of the most decorated New York City police officers. He received its award for valor, which is the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, for saving the life of his partner. He received 100 other awards, 40 of which were for valor. He helped to save my life and a group of other people when we were trapped on September 11. He had the courage to keep everything together for week after week after week after week after week in dealing with September 11, which was morphed into anthrax and then another plane crash. And there's no possible way I can describe to you all of the challenges and the challenges he had to overcome with the gentleman who sat with me today, Tom Von Essen, who was the fire commissioner, and a man who wasn't with me today, who died some time ago, who was the head of emergency services, Richie Shearer. But Richie, I'm sure, somehow, some way by now has met up with him in the place that Jesus has prepared for us. So we say goodbye to Bernie very, very, with very, very very burdened heart, and I don't know when I'm going to stop saying, "Get me Bernie." Probably never, huh? I was so used to it. When the president made me his attorney for the challenge to the 2020 election, I didn't even have to call Bernie. He just showed up. I knew he was going to be my chief investigator, and he knew I wouldn't have done it with anybody else, and the president knew it. The president was very happy about that. The president loved him, cared for him greatly, and he was 100% dedicated through all of it. I don't. I'm one of these people that are willing to, in politics, people make mistakes and they support you, then they stop, and then they do. And it can happen, and it doesn't always suggest disloyalty. Sometimes it does. But all I can tell you about Bernie is there was never a day, never a moment, never a time in which he didn't believe deep in his heart that Donald Trump should be president of the United States, or that Donald Trump was president of the United States. And he worked very hard for that. And I'm so sad to see him go, but I am so happy that he lived to see this country in the hands of someone, Donald Trump, who can save it. There you see the pipe and drum corps of the New York Police Department, and you get an idea of its Celtic roots, huh? And this ceremony, this so-called commissioner's funeral has kept
right across the city.
You feel that when the casket is being carried on the shoulders of those big giant police officers. You know when that happens that you're looking at one of your heroes. He's being held up, and then you see the streets of New York lined for. This man was their commissioner 25 years ago. So look at the love for him. Not quite something. Well, Bernard, rest in peace. But don't rest too much, because we need you to pray for us. He was a prayerful man. Tough man. Tough man. Black belt. Principled. Emotional. We'll miss him a lot. And to his family, and to his daughters, who are my goddaughters, and to his son Joseph, we're there for you. And when I say we, I mean all the people you that were around you for the last couple of weeks, really, as Bernie fought for his life, and then certainly during the wake. These are people that are ready to help you with the difficulties that you're going to face. And you're human. You are going to face difficulties. Well, I ended my last show talking at the end about a subject I didn't want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about it right away and get it over with and finish it. This Elon Musk, Donald Trump thing, I don't know. Let's just forget about it. I mean, it's the most, we don't need it. I can make the case that Elon should not have, when he left the administration, he certainly shouldn't have made allegations that the president wasn't keeping his campaign promises. I attribute a little of that to Elon's lack of knowledge of politics. I don't think there's ever been a politician, even those of the greatest honesty and good faith, that kept every one of their campaign promises. You'd almost have to be Jesus to do that. Ronald Reagan, who to me was the greatest president of the modern era and probably one of the most honest, had a lot of campaign promises, but he had three main ones. One was to deliver us from the terrors of communism, from godless, maniacal, homicidal communism. The second was to grow our economy so that Americans would be out of stagflation, out of and in the situation they should be in, tremendous economic growth. And the third was to reduce our debt. He accomplished two. He increased our debt because he couldn't accomplish the first and accomplish the third. And he had to make a choice, which is more important. He made the right choice. Better to have debt than to have us all talking Russian, huh? So I don't know that Trump will have to make similar choices. He may not. Along the way, he's going to have to make similar choices because unlike the unrealistic situation some people in his party are trying to impose on him, and I find it almost childish, and certainly, I'm not going to say ignorant, but I am. You can't turn around something like this with one budget. They didn't cut enough. Well, of course they didn't cut enough. They've been putting the money there for 50 years. You're going to cut it in 1 year. Everybody go broke. If you have a gigantic, if you've got a gigantic, monstrous pile of debris and been put up there for 30 years, you can't get rid of it in one day. You got to set a sensible program for doing it. And of course, it's more complicated than that because some of the things that are funded are needed and have to be funded, or we're not going to exist. And some of the things are wasteful, and some of the things are dishonest. You just can't separate those like. And you even saw, and this is not a criticism of Musk, this is just the reality. You even saw with Doge that they made mistakes. But it was ridiculous to get upset about their mistakes because they acknowledged them and corrected them. But they also found unbelievably shocking expenditures, many of them much worse than I even thought. So the prospect that a 3-year disciplined approach to finding this will in fact find us the $1 to $2 trillion worth of savings we're going to need to overcome our debt. If we have the courage to stick with it, is there. But to think that you could remove it, that you could pull $2 trillion out of a budget that's about 6.4 trillion in 1 year and not create catastrophes, people starving, people dying, defense programs that put us at risk with China, Russia, or whatever, is just immature. It means you don't understand the really important and critical things the federal government does, which is mostly our defense. So I am not happy with the bill. The president's not happy with the bill. And had he gotten bigger majorities in both houses, he would have gone further, but still not all the way. Otherwise, he'd ruin America. So this has to be seen as a down payment on where we're going. And it's a damn good one. It's the biggest tax cut we've ever had. Put the other way, if they screw it up, it's the biggest tax increase we'll ever have. You want that? I mean, I don't even get some of them I really like a lot, like Johnson and Grassley and Rand Paul, and maybe they're posturing to get a few little things out of it, but I just don't believe they're going to impose on us the largest tax cut we ever had. That alone makes this worth it because the tax cut, which is making permanent the old one, but adding some really good ones, and all this stuff about for the rich, my backside. The rich don't get tips, and the rich don't count on Social Security. So, and the rich, I don't know, I don't think Musk gets paid much for overtime. or Gates or any of those people. Those are all middle-class tax cuts, lower to middle-class tax cuts. Even all the debate about SALT, the state and local taxes. And the level they got to is right there at the heart of the middle class. It doesn't go, it doesn't reach people who are even moderately wealthy. They're still paying really more than their fair share of taxes. But as long as it isn't, you can have a different rule. Here's mine. It gets really bad when the government goes over 50%. When they take half of, when you're working for the government more than you're working for your family, then we're becoming like a communist country. So if they're taking 55%, it starts to get ridiculous. Let's get it below 55 and then as far down as we can go. So people make their own choices with their money, which creates a much more dynamic, growing, and productive economy. But this bill is a good step in that direction. And let's hope that this debate between Musk and Trump doesn't put it in further jeopardy. I don't think it will. These congressmen and senators, as Ted knows, having worked there, they've got their own agenda on a lot of this, right, Ted? They've got definitely their own agenda.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and their own lobbyists. Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Musk getting upset about it, I don't know, it might even help. Who knows? Some of them don't like Musk, right?
Well, look, one thing we can say about this, it's not, and I know we don't want to talk too much about it. We don't want to give them any more fodder. It's okay to disagree for one, right? And I think the concern here is how, right? The way that this unfolded publicly.
Yeah.
And it gives, but I think in the long run, right? None of this surprises us, in terms of, strong personalities, and
the richest man in the world and the most powerful.
Right. Someone put it like that. Was
like
that you,
movie,
Mayor? Yeah,
right?
It really is, right?
It's like Murder in the Cathedral.
Yeah.
Not murder though. I mean, like between Henry II and Becket, or Henry VIII and St.
I will
Thomas
say,
More.
we were one day at Mar-a-Lago. Elon, I can't imagine he goes out of his way, right, to pop up and say hi to people. He did with the mayor. He saw you. He said, Mayor Giuliani. And he came over and shook her, right? It's not often. Usually it's people are going up to him, right? So I remember that was interesting. And I guess now he'll go, and he's got a lot of work to do there with
there's a lot of work to do with its beginning. It's it's his first inning or maybe the second inning for Doge.
Right.
If it plays a nice 9-inning ball game, we're gonna be in great shape.
We're just getting started. So
there was a really important event in Washington today that is overlooked by everyone, of course, because nobody really cares about you in the media except a few people. Epoch Times, and we're going to get definitely the right. We're going to call up this weekend, Ted, and get the correct pronunciation of that. All right. Do you know that Ted is sitting on the floor tonight? He's so dedicated. He's sitting on the floor. Yeah. Where we are, I should let you know we are we're in a very iconic place. We're at the Plaza Hotel, which is featured in Home Alone 2, with a scene with the owner of the Plaza Hotel. With a scene with the owner. And we're gonna maybe dig it up and find it for you. But we have a nice room here at the Plaza, which we took yesterday because we came in a day before so we could go to the wake. And we were all there, Ted and Dr. Maria and I, honoring our good friend Bernie, and it was very beautiful. But they're not telling you. Nobody's telling you about the program today in Washington. I mean, they talk about all kinds of programs, and they weren't talking about the program put on by the Epoch Times about China's infiltration into the United States. Now, this is a subject that requires a a 6-credit full year course. But there's no organization that knows as much about it as the Epoch Times, or can bring to you the people from inside China. I heard just some of it with someone inside, I think, China. They didn't tell us where he was. I was worried about the guy. But it is hard to really describe to you in a way that brings home the full scope of this, the length and breadth of the Chinese infiltration of this country. I do not believe we've ever been infiltrated this way. I know the Russians weren't as deeply into it as the Chinese, because I'm aware of the Russian infiltration. And it was deep, but it was nothing like this. The Russians did espionage, and the Russians did a certain amount of citizen infiltration, but nowhere near the amount that is done by the Chinese. And they had short programs on all of this, at least alerting people to the levels of infiltration in the universities, in large businesses, in areas, of course, particularly where they can do intellectual property theft, way down to grammar schools, the beginning of education, almost anything that educates, map companies and book companies. A big one, a really big one. I don't know if I'd say control. Certainly tremendous amount of power in our entertainment industry, so that you virtually cannot do a movie that's critical of China. You can do plenty of movies critical of the United States. That's all they do. I mean, 2/3 of the movies. I mean, I stopped going 20. I remember there was a period of time I always liked, of course, being a male, which we used to have at one time. We had males. Did you know that? Being a man and a male, I like cowboy movies and I like detective movies, and I liked spy movies, all that kind of thing, and I liked movies about war, and the war movies were beautiful, and it made you want to serve your country, and it made you love your country. And then all of a sudden, I noticed, and this is the change with Vietnam, that the war movies, the soldiers that used to be presented as heroes and regular guys in some cases, or special guys in other cases. All of a sudden, every soldier was some kind of a very sick little puppy. They were all suffering, and some were sadistic. Some were insane. Look at Deer Hunter. I mean, the guy blows his brains out, right? All those, they're all anti. Like there's something wrong with our soldiers. I stopped going to them because, of course, we want to know about PTSD, and of course, we want to deal with it. But you got to present it in a balanced way. Not everyone who has fought in a war emerges with PTSD. Or even when they do, it isn't the kind of PTSD that's going to ruin the rest of their lives. It doesn't mean we should ignore it. On the other hand, we shouldn't paint it as this, all people who fight in war are disabled. They're not. In fact, very often they're empowered. I believe China created that for us. Now, if you were to do, let's say you wanted to do a feature movie on the Chinese genocide of the Uyghur people, dramatizing it, or you wanted to put on television some of the great novels that have been done by Chinese authors on the torture that's done in China. Have you ever seen one? Have you ever seen anything on China about how the Chinese appoint bishops in the Catholic Church? That'd make a good movie, right? Have you ever seen anything on the Uyghurs, right? Have you ever seen a movie about the Falun Gong and the fact that, according to reports from the United Kingdom, China is the number one source of live organs. They don't take them from dying people. How about a movie on that? That's a well-documented international crime. It'd be fascinating for a James Bond type movie, right? Now, how about their having police stations in America? That wouldn't make a good movie. How about one just on the police station they had in New York and what they do and how they go find third-generation Chinese and extort them to spy if they have any connections back in China? You've seen nothing about that. You hardly read about it, and you certainly see nothing in the mass media about it. That is not by accident. That is part of the Chinese infiltration program, their spreading of propaganda and brainwashing of the American people and the world. This program started to bring it out. And there's a lot to learn about this, and we're going to be covering it. So by the time you're finished, 6 months with us, we'll give you a certificate in understanding Chinese infiltration. But it should have gotten attention, and it didn't for the exact same reason that they had to have it, if that makes sense to you. But we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use pro.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
This is Rudy Giuliani back back with you on America's Mayor Live, broadcasting from his old hometown of New York at the Plaza Hotel. Now, we said before we were going to show you the former owner who appeared in the movie Home Alone 2. This is the Plaza Hotel that we're in right now. It's been remodeled somewhat, but this is...
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks. Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
When was that movie? 1990, maybe? 91, 92, something like that.
Yep, that was
That was the second one.
the second one. So
And there were
yeah,
various.
that would have been the mid.
You know
mid-90s,
where
mid to late 90s.
Chinese dominated Hollywood took that scene out for some time, and they got so many complaints they had to put it back.
That's right.
They took Trump out.
That's right. I think Canada, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation did that, if I remember correctly. Let me get that. CBC. So a lot of these.
are Canadians communists?
I wonder if that. Yeah,
I know
Yeah, how-
Stephen's not here, so we can talk.
you can talk
freely.
but I think you would agree with a lot of the problems, right? Like what's happening to Canadian people. Maybe they just had it too.
Do we
good.
really want them?
That's the
They
thing.
can all vote Democrat.
That we don't want two more Canadians. we
maybe
don't want
they-
two more senators on the.
Are their minerals worth it? I mean,
Imagine Trudeau as a
the
U.S.
minerals
senator.
aren't worth going communist.
Right. Imagine Trudeau as a senator.
Yeah, I don't
Imagine
know.
if
I
they
don't
would
know.
elect.
Maybe it's possible we could just take the western part of Canada.
Oh, we want that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wonder if that's where the minerals are too.
Edmonton,
I bet there are. They are because that's where the oil is.
the Stanley Cup. Edmonton Oilers against the Florida Panthers.
Well, we are now awaiting, I believe, Putin's response to the devastating attack of earlier this week when Ukraine hit 3,500 miles into Russia and took out an air base, basically right above Mongolia, basically on the Mongolian border, as well as an air base at virtually at the Arctic Circle. It showed the capacity that they have to inflict lethal damage on Russia if this war continues. The purpose of it, I'm sure, was to try to convince Putin that it isn't worth continuing this battle. Now, from the rhetoric, it appears as if what it convinced them to do is to strike back. Even some suggestions that they might strike back with tactical nuclear weapons. Of course, we don't know what the result of the Trump-Putin conversation was, but Trump said as much, that he expected that there would be. Actually, Trump said today that he expects that the war is going to continue for a while. Luckily, he didn't say that we're pulling out of peace negotiations. Although it isn't so much the peace negotiations that I'm worried about. I don't want him to pull out of the effort, because I think that that would make peace almost impossible, and this would be an ongoing, forever war if America pulled out. I don't think Europe would be capable of really containing Russia or be able to do enough to help Ukraine contest Russia. I don't think we have to be the only player. I'm not even sure we have to be the biggest player. I think Europe has to take up a big part of this burden. But I do think we have to be involved, particularly to control Russia's worst instincts. And a continuation of this war, if in fact we're going to allow the gloves to be taken off Ukraine, could start to even the score quite a bit. It could even mean the end for Putin. I don't mean being killed. I mean getting thrown out. I mean the financial condition of Russia is precarious, as it is in China, and the combination of war and starvation is a very bad combination for a dictator. That's another way to look at this. Also, having now put us through this, the price has to go up as far as Putin is concerned in terms of any kind of peace that he wants. No peace on his terms. The peace has to take a big chunk out of him and not just out of Ukraine. So let's see if that is what happens in this transition that is now going on. In Israel, the issue really is, and this is clearer to me than anything. It's over. I mean, there's no purpose at all to a written agreement with Iran. It's not worth it. First of all, they're objecting so much to it. You know they're not going to follow it. If they do it, they're just going to do it because of wanting to hold us off for a little bit longer. You know they don't believe in it or embrace it, and they cheat and lie and never keep their words. Even when they don't telegraph, they're going to do that. And now they're telegraphing they're going to do that. And I don't know, maybe this is all posturing. I am praying that it is. But they are getting me nervous with all these things that we want some kind of written agreement with them. But we prefer a written agreement. I'd prefer taking out the nuclear facilities because then I'd feel the world was safe. The world is not safe with a written agreement with the reign of terror. It isn't worth the paper it's written on. Might as well not have it. So the only thing that will make us safe is if we take out all those nuclear facilities. And if they want to start over again, go ahead, bankrupt yourself, start over again. And I don't think we hit them and lift the sanctions. We lift the sanctions when the reign of terror is over, when the Ayatollah is a matter of history, and the people of Ukraine, like the people of Poland, who are liberated and become a free people again, people of Iran rather. The minerals are, the minerals from Ukraine and the mineral rights that we're negotiating for elsewhere are really important because of the situation with China. But freedom for these people is also really important, particularly for the Iranian people. And the other thing about Iran is I just don't see a viable way to a lasting peace in the Middle East as long as the reign of terror has the ambitions of developing an Islamic empire. Because an Islamic empire with invoking the words of Muhammad means the elimination of the Jewish people or their subjugation. Don't get all comfortable, the Christian people too. Well, we saw Kash Patel today, but we didn't. I did not think it was appropriate to use it as an occasion to ask him a whole bunch of questions. So we didn't ask him any questions except wish him well. But let's talk about him, okay, Ted?
Mm-hmm.
So, where do you think they are? Where do you think they are on this Epstein thing? And I have to tell you, I know curiosity is enormous, right?
Mhm.
But I'm much more important about investigations of the Biden cover-ups
Right.
than I am Epstein.
Right. And so it's interesting. And we did see your friend Cash today. And some people are, they want everything solved day one, right? And nobody knows I don't want to call it complicated, but all the the institutional everything you got to do that is involved when you're taking over an agency of tens of thousands of people that has been this corrupted by politicization at the top. And people are going to want to hear your opinion much more than mine, Mayor. But my only question to some folks would be, what is
No,
the
but
appropriate
you've
amount of
lived-
time? Like what?
You've lived through this,
Yeah.
So you have a very
Sure.
good point of view on it. A very,
Sure. You're FBI Man of the Year.
Yeah.
So we're talking to someone here who knows the ins and outs of the Justice Department, the FBI, Washington, right? You've gotten to know Washington under numerous presidents. And so I get frustrated, right? We all do. President Trump is a man of action. You're a man of action. So, when I'm around these types of folks, you want to see results, especially considering what we went through the previous 4 years. But as you've said many times, Mayor, we still believe in the rule of law, and we believe in the Constitution, and we got to have some semblance of order here. And so my hope is that they're doing the work to ensure when these prosecutions and arrests are made, that they're buttoned up and following our rule of law, because we're not going to politicize it the way they did. We should just hold them accountable on the numerous issues, right? Whether it's Epstein, or some of these other issues, right? January 6th, the committee, what's going on there? And like you said, the Biden cover up, the auto pen, who knew what and when, in as far as his mental incapacitation. And are we going to get anything beyond these highlight reels from these congressional hearings, right? Plenty of those, plenty of points being made in these hearings and press conferences and tweets. But Mayor, I think some people want to see some action, some people held accountable, so that this doesn't happen again in the future.
There's a really good point to that. And when I'm give you a little chance to think about it, because there was a comment made to me by someone at the wake last night, a very close friend of Bernie's and a person very knowledgeable about these things that I want to bring up. But we'll do that very shortly, and we'll take a short break. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Welcome back to America's Mayor Live. As we honor the life and legacy of one of the mayor's closest friends and confidants, the 40th police commissioner of the NYPD. He also ran Rikers Island, where he saw a record drop in crime, and went on to have a very successful career in the private sector, and advised dozens and dozens of entities, companies, governments on security. And so it was a big loss for not just New York and the law enforcement community, but really for the whole country. Uh, Bernie Kerik, as so many people said today, really was a cop's cop. And he seemingly had done it all. The stories that I had, the mayor has told me from the moment I met him, to all of his friends and family today. This is the definition of a true hero. I actually met Bernie Kerik for the first time following the 2020 presidential election. I was on the campaign for President Trump, and a lot of us knew a lot of funny business was happening in those days, right after Election Day, and when the mayor came, Bernie Kerik was there as well, and Bernie he actually was driving the car the first time I met him with the mayor and some others, right after the 2020 election, right after Election Day. And so just wanted to share some
Just help me with this.
pictures here of Bernie and the mayor. So this is Bernie and the mayor of right after 9/11. That's Saturday Night Live set, if I remember
That is the
recall
Saturday Night Live
correctly.
set. That's right. I remember that.
And this one, Bernie's
Quite well.
showing off a badge. Is this when you named him the commissioner?
Yeah, that must be.
Right, he's got a badge in his hand there.
Yeah. What
Look
if
at
that's a
that.
Jefferson portrait they took down?
What's it with the
behind
background?
us? The communists.
That's more recent.
Well, that's
recent
September
times.
11.
That's a memorial
You
with
can,
the
just by
blue,
the expression on our face, you can tell it's September 11.
the blue ribbon. And this must have been right after, or maybe before,
Well,
probably
that's
right
September
after.
11.
Yeah,
That's the way we're dressed.
right.
Yeah.
And this one, that's an iconic photo.
Yeah.
It's you, the commissioner, the fire, and the president.
Yeah.
And I believe the governor might be there
Yeah.
behind Bernie.
That was the picture of Bernie on the altar or at the wake last night.
Right, that's right. And that's another one from a more recent time.
Well, here we are back at the Plaza Hotel. And I wanted to raise the question. We were talking about FBI investigations and the things that need to be investigated. And one gentleman, I'm going to move just a little this way. What do you think, Ted? That's better, right?
Oh, there we go. Front and
All
center.
right. We want to be in the center.
Yeah.
So he said to me the following, very, very earnestly and very concerned. And I thought he made the right point. There's an awful lot of propaganda that is created that basically tries to stop the Cash Patels and the Pam Bondis and from investigating on the theory that you can't be vindictive. You can't do your own lawfare. The two wrongs don't make a right. This is like what they've done with Palestine and Israel. They created a moral equivalent between a terrorist state that steals money and starves their people, wants to eliminate the Jewish people in America, and a lawful democracy that just wants to thrive and survive. There is no moral equivalency between what they did and then holding them accountable for what they did. They committed dastardly crimes. And now they're going to get away with it because we shouldn't do the same thing that we're not doing the same thing that they did. We're not prosecuting Jim Comey with the kind of frame up that he prosecuted General Flynn. He virtually admitted that he entrapped General Flynn. Comey lied over and over and over and over and over again under oath on one of our most important documents, a national security document that resulted in illegal investigations of an innocent man. That's a crime. That's not lawfare to prosecute. That's the execution of the law to prosecute him. It's called something we forgot. Democrats haven't known it in a long time. It's called justice. The criminal law exists for the primary purpose of punishing the guilty in order to achieve justice, but also for deterrence, to say to people that might consider committing the crime, it's not worth it. This goes back not just to English law, but to Roman law, Napoleonic law. You have any legal system. You can never possibly prosecute all those who commit crime. So you hope to reduce the number of people committing crime by using people who are caught as examples. When you fail to do that, you encourage criminals to commit crimes. And this gentleman said to me that if we ignore this out of intimidation, that we're going to be painted as people who are, acting unfairly. It's just going to happen all over again. He said, all these people better be ready to go to jail if the Democrats come into office. Because they won't care. They won't care that they weren't prosecuted. They won't care that it was legal. They'll make it up, like they did with Trump, like they've done with me, like they've done with Professor Eastman, like they've done with 50 other people. So I think that it is important that these things be brought to account. I think it's important that the people who did this are singled out. I also think it's important for history that the truth comes out. And I think that means a massive investigation of the Biden overlapping circles of RICO cases. I mean, there are at least 5 different major crimes they committed. And they all really fit into the same overall conspiracy or racketeering enterprise. And they should be prosecuted, despite the fact that Joe Biden might not be able to be a defendant because he's non-compos mentis, or despite the fact that some of them may be immune. They're not all immune. And I think some of the immunities might well be challengeable, particularly if they're done by an auto pen. The Constitution says the president has to do a pardon, not an auto pen. We don't elect an auto pen. And a pardon has to be a meaningful act. If you go back to the Constitutional Convention, the pardon power of the president is borrowed from the pardon power of the king. And the king has to know what he's doing in order to pardon you. Otherwise, the pardon's not effective. Well, if he doesn't know what he's doing, all those pardons aren't worth the paper they're written on. And so those cases might be prosecutable. And you could challenge it that way. You could include in the indictment those who haven't been pardoned, of which there are many that were in both the Obama and Biden administrations. And then you can challenge the pardons where there was an auto pen that was used. And I would say that just the mere fact that we get all the facts out, I think would materially change the Democrat Party and force it to become honest again, which is what we want. We want a two-party system. Of course, we want to destroy the crooked Democrat Party. We don't want to destroy an opposition party. I would prefer and feel much more comfortable with a party that had a different name, because I think that their hypocrisy in changing names is amazing when you consider that the closest name associated with slavery is Democrat Party. And they go around using it all the time. It's about time that we're honest about that. So I don't know what we're looking to this weekend. I think, let me see if I can. We certainly we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we know what's on the table. Putin is going to have to make a response, and we have to see what kind of response it is. Is it a response that is not intended to escalate, just to answer? Is it a response that's massive, in which case all bets are off? It is about time that the Iran situation is settled with a destruction of their nuclear facilities. All of the trade agreements are still going on. Trump just had a very lengthy conversation with Xi Jinping. Let's see what kind of an effect that has on the whole negotiation with China. But no matter what we negotiate with China, let's follow up on that program that the New Epoch Times has about infiltration, because our future is at stake there. I thank you very, very much for listening in today, particularly because so much of it concerned my good friend and your big hero for America, Bernie Kerik. This was a wonderful life. This was a man who saved many, many lives and inspired many, many people. And he's going to be very missed. I mean, missed so that there are days in which there could be many days in which I'm going to say to myself, I wish I had Bernie, because you can't imagine how resourceful this man was and how brave he was and what good common sense he had. Maybe that all goes together. I don't know. But I want you now to go over to Lindell's speech or Rumble or because you can see Dr. Maria. And Dr. Maria is also broadcasting from here today, from New York, because she was at the funeral of her friend, Bernard Carrick. And she always has a fascinating observation on things that are a little bit different because of her Republican libertarian viewpoint, which is very much a part of her. So you go over now to Lindell TV, Rumble. What else, Ted?
For the Dr. Maria Show, Lindell TV and Lindell TV on X.
Oh, Lindell TV on X.
I believe. But definitely LindellTV.com is a place to go to see the Dr. Maria Show every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 9.
And then You stay tuned in case we have anything for you on the weekend. Just keep watching, just in case.
Never
and then
know.
we'll be back at 7 o'clock on Lindell TV on Monday and 8 o'clock with America's Mayor Live. Pray for the people of Ukraine and of Israel and of Iran so that they have freedom. Pray for us. Because as I explained last night, or actually 2 nights ago, because we were at the wake last night, these axes that are forming on both sides are very reminiscent of what happened before the First and Second World War. I don't like it because it means that if there's hostility with one country, it doesn't remain one country in the other. Then other countries necessarily get involved. And that's how you trigger a world war. So let's keep very much on top of it and be very careful. And of course, let's pray to God for peace and thank him for what he's given us in America. When we say, God bless America, it's a prayer, really, when we end this show. So let's all do it together, huh? Why don't we all just yell out together? Because I can hear you if you yell out loud enough, particularly here if you do it in the hotel. God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.